the second thing, let's move on to the second point, is the crisis of Barbie as the deconstruction of the perfect woman. The crisis of Barbie as the deconstruction of the perfect woman. So in this case, the Margot Robbie actually plays the stereotypical Barbie, and they actually call it that way, you know, the perfect, put together, beautiful, no cellulite, nothing, no wrinkle, everything is super perfect Barbie. Okay, and in the movie, Barbie goes through a crisis. Now let me explain this, and we see several symbols or several features or characteristics in the movie that change in Barbie's life that can communicate a loss of this, or more than a loss, I would say a deconstruction, like a crisis of her own identity, you would say. You could call it that. Okay, so the first thing that we see is the loss of the shape of the feet. So Barbie basically had all the time her heels up, as if she was wearing a heel, like a pair of heels, basically. But now, in one point of the movie, when she starts experiencing this crisis, now she's touching the floor with her feet flat. So no longer like this, but just flat. No elevation in the heels. The second feature that we see is the appearance of cellulite. Before that, she was perfect, and she starts developing in her legs some cellulite. And another thing really important is the thoughts of death. She starts thinking of death. And then in one scene, she breaks down, expressing how much pressure she feels to be perfect, to be ideal, right? I cannot have cellulite. I should be thinking all the time positive. I shouldn't lose the shape of my feet. That makes me look more beautiful. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm just having so much pain, so much pressure. Like, I'm just in pain. I want to be perfect. That's basically the complaint that the stereotypical Barbie expresses in the movie. And so this basically is the pain of fitting the ideal, right? Like, you need to fit an ideal, a framework, a way of being that has been imposed on you, so to speak. So we see here that the deconstruction period, or this stage, if you have watched the first and second and third episode, are key. This might help you to understand even some of the words I'm using. You could listen to those. But basically, she's going through this stage of perplexity, right? Or deconstruction, like a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, a lot of questions, a lot of doubts. And this, in her case, is a refining pain, actually. So to speak, a pain that has the capacity to liberate her from this perfect woman type of archetype or ideal. Okay, now there is one intervention that I find really powerful and important in this case, which is Gloria. Gloria is one of the characters of the real world, because you have Barbie world all put together, all perfect, and then the real world where women are not treated right all of the time. They suffer injustice and so on, and they are not perfect. They have cellulites and all of these things, obviously. And so Gloria is one of the characters from the real world, and Gloria sees Barbie, the stereotypical Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, in distress. And Gloria, with this character that is played by I think America Ferrera, I think that's her name, of the actress. And so in the movie, I'm going to read this excerpt, okay, because I find it really powerful, about this Gloria speaking, this woman of the real world, speaking to the stereotypical Barbie, and it says the following: "It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you are good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we are always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You are supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you are accused of complaining. So you are supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you are supposed to be a part of the sisterhood. But always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigid. So find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll just representing women, then I don't even know. And that is the marvelous monologue or interaction between Gloria, the woman from the real world, and Barbie. And so Gloria was telling Barbie all of this as a way to help her, for her to not be so downcast, so down basically. And so I love this entire paragraph, right? Because if you think about it, Barbie, the stereotypical Barbie, represented a progress with regard to the expansion of women's identity from motherhood only to womanhood in general. That it also includes motherhood, but it's not only about motherhood. It's not only about the reproductive capacity of women, of giving birth. It's not, their value lies not only there, basically. That is kind of like the expansion. And so, as I said before, little girls would see Barbie and see, oh, I could be a lawyer, I could be this, I could be that, not just a mom, not just playing with little babies, as has, so to speak, pre-training to become a mother later. And so that's how I read it. And so in this case, you can see the crisis of Barbie as the deconstruction of the perfect woman. Now, yes, there was progress in the first point of expanding the female identity from motherhood to womanhood. You know, from mother to just a woman in whose life there might be motherhood or not, but it's not just about that. And so, but we even with Barbie, the point Gloria is speaking about is that even with the stereotypical Barbie, even though it represents a progress compared to just this notion that women are just worth for the birthing capacity of creating life, of things like that, but we still see the archetype of the stereotypical Barbie, that it is still tyrannical, it is still corrupted with patriarchal, parasitic ideas. Let me repeat that. The archetype that the stereotypical Barbie represents is still tyrannical and corrupted with patriarchal, parasitic ideas, which could be summarized in the phrase, you are great, but still doing it wrong. It's never enough. It's never, you will always be criticized, you will always be told something. And this is obviously when you are trying your best. So imagine if you don't even try. Now, and this is something that I've seen in my life, right? Because I remember my mom has been, from Peru. She has grown up with these frameworks, traditional frameworks. Now, not all of those frameworks or way of understanding the female experience are wrong per se, but she was surprised and she really thought that I was such a fantastic husband. And my brother Gabo and I, one day we were talking about, and I told my mom, Mom, I'm not really that fantastic. Like, I'm just trying to do my best, but I fall quite short many times, and this is what now many couples do. It's like I'm not doing anything extraordinary for doing my part in the chores or taking initiative with certain things. Like, that is just being a partner, and that should be kind of like the minimum, so to speak. But for my mom, she really thought that I was like like an insane human being in the sense of good, like an excellent, or like a saint for even just doing the regular things that we're supposed to do. Because in her context, or the way of reference, that the paradigm that she had to be able to see and criticize this reality, or to interpret the reality she was seeing, she thought I was going the extra mile, because men in her time didn't do much, and women worked, and they were also expected to be the main person in the house taking care of everything, so two jobs at the same time. And so that's something that I saw with my mom's comment about how incredible of a husband I am, or also with the kids, like with Aiden, we only have one. And so sometimes I go outside and I have the stroller, and I am with Aiden, and sometimes I could receive compliments like, oh, what a good father, and things like that. Obviously this is changing, but it is true that we get almost badges of honor just for being parents. And something even my wife corrected me is that I used to say, oh, I need to babysit Aiden. It's true that in Spanish we don't really have like difference per se, because you just say cuidar, which is take care of your kid. But in English you have babysitting and parenting, and so I would use babysitting to refer to my child, and my wife's like, no, you're not babysitting, you are parenting, it's your role as a father. And she was right. And then not only that, but also in the house, like sometimes I would say, okay, I'm going to help you with the house, but it was like, no, I just had my fair amount of responsibility in the house. I wasn't really helping, I was just doing my part, because help sounds like I'm doing her a favor. And so these little things that you see that are so internalized, and don't get me wrong, I don't have these male guilt or things like that. I just don't think that is the proper way of understanding these problems. But if I see that this is wrong and it's not adequate, of course I'm willing to change it. But I'm just sharing all of this, as you can see how in the like women can be heavily criticized, and sometimes men for doing just the minimum, so to speak. Like, we get so much praise. That's what I'm trying to say. And so basically this pressure of always being everything and doing it right, this ideal of this archetype of the perfect woman, I see as a mixture of two things, right? On the one hand, I think that some women who mean well and they want justice, they can be trapped by this feminist utopia. And don't get me wrong, I think that feminism, I consider myself a feminist, with nuances there, because it's, now it's a loaded term and there are many waves, and there are things within feminism that I completely disagree. So take that as it may. I will eventually do a course, hopefully, on the history of feminism. If you're interested, let me know. That is something that I've been thinking. Maybe as a season for the podcast, I might do like the history of feminism and the history of thought about different ideas and school of thought, and but that's not necessarily the topic. My opinion about it is not the topic of today. What I want to address is the movie more so than the entire thing of the feminist movement per se. But yeah, so this pressure of always being everything and doing it right is a mixture, I would say, of, on the one hand, feminist utopia, where women put all the burden of the good cause, of the social justice. So they put the burden of being the agents of change, like that they need to embody the right social cause and justice and do it right, and and so it's so much pressure on themselves to be a heroic figure, so to speak. And I think that paradigm of always trying to be perfect is also mixed with this patriarchal or sexist demand of staying in their place and not causing trouble, right? So you have to be perfect, you have to be super innocent but naive and almost like a virgin in everything, but then in bed you need to be super experienced and do everything I tell you. So it's like, come on, man, it's like, stop it. The angel in the house during the day and a prostitute during the night, basically. And so we have the patriarchal fantasies, or the meta narratives that come from this toxicity from men, and some of the ideas also are part of this perfect woman type of archetype in the consciousness of women, basically. And this is tyrannical. So I would say that this, when Gloria is telling Barbie these things, she is basically attacking and putting words and articulating this, so to speak, archetypal perfect woman that needs to die because it's tyrannical, because it just doesn't treat with kindness and love women, you know. And so I think that those are, I would say, the two things that is so pervasive in women's consciousness, right? Like, you have to be the agent of social cause and change everything and teach every man and teach every woman all of this and doing everything right, which is exhausting, I can't even imagine. But at the same time, you have these patriarchal demands, and you live with men, and you are part of men's lives too. And so then you feel like, I could speak up and say something, but I have to, stay in line and not cause so much trouble, because I mean, the men in my life will just say that I'm being hysterical. My goodness. So I would say that, so that's why I'm saying the symbol of womanhood, or the conception of womanhood in the collective consciousness of women, is this mixture of the perfect activist that embodies all the right values, and the not so loud men's partner that has to stay in line and not cause much fuss about anything. And so, yeah, this idea needs to die. And so basically she loses what I have called in one of my YouTube shorts, and in the first 3 episodes, I definitely encourage you to watch it. She loses what I call the first naivete. Well, I don't really call it like that. I just think that she's going through that. The first naivete was Paul Ricoeur talking about Kierkegaard. Talks about the first naivete and the second naivete. The first naivete is when you see the reality through naive lenses. Everything is perfect, everything means well, this is awesome, and so on. And then you start seeing the cracks in your world, that the images that you have about life, reality, your life, the partner, your family, is actually not that way. And so then disappointment, pain, betrayal, treason completely destroys this beautifully Barbie world of fantasy that we have in our minds. And so then you are left with bitterness, pain, and tears. And so with that, then you go through this pain, which is a refining pain if you know how to absorb that moment of wilderness, of chaos, of doubt, of perplexity. Then if you are helped in that process, then you go to the second naivete, which is a place of harmony, where you come to terms that form you, but from a place of love, from a place of peace, from a place of, hey, I see all the darkness here, but I also see the light. And so that is the second naivete. You come to terms with yourself, with other people. You still see the patriarchy, the crazy standards for women and all of that, and still you are capable of loving men, of loving women, of loving children, of loving motherhood, of loving all of that. Tremendo. This is tremendo. So that is the idea. So she's going through this, she loses this first naivete through this pain, and so she's going through that. She's grieving the loss, the burial, she's burying this archetype of the perfect woman. It's not working anymore. It doesn't answer to life problems. So that is the key idea here. 2 characters, I would say, are expressing or embodying this movement from the first naivete to the second naivete in Barbie's, the stereotypical Barbie Margot Robbie character. So you have Sasha, who is the Gloria's daughter, and then you have Gloria, who is the woman that is telling her all of this to encourage her to start putting so much pressure on herself. And so Gloria and Sasha are part of the real world. They know the bitterness, they know the betrayal, they know the pain that many women go through. So I would say that if you see Sasha is super bitter, super disenchanted with the world, full of bitterness and lack of forgiveness and lack of love towards the enemy. In Gloria, you see a more character that is almost reaching harmony and have more compassion, even though she sees the problems. And so you see Sasha and Gloria, I would say, as if we look at it from the psychoanalytic point of view, that Sasha would be the part of Barbie's consciousness that is going through this perplexity stage, and you would say Gloria, who represents the voice of womanhood that is more mature, that is less naive, more mature and more loving, and is almost reaching harmony. And I think that Sasha and Gloria, I would say, is the voices that many women have in their inner being while going through this first naivete to second naivete, or from this place of deconstruction, perplexity, brokenness, and pain to a place of harmony, of coming to terms, of seeing larger unities with everybody. That is the idea. Okay, so basically both Sasha and Gloria reflect the moral and psychological journey of the stereotypical Barbie from deconstruction to reconstruction, almost.